This story is called The Last Straw, and it was written by Paula McDonald. To truly share this season of love and laughter, even a little boy must first discover Christmas in his heart. Everyone, unfortunately, was cooped up in the house that typical gray winter afternoon, and as usual, the four little McNeils were at it again, teasing each other, squabbling, bickering, always fighting over their toys. At times like this, Mother was almost ready to believe that her children didn't love each other, even though she knew that wasn't true. All brothers and sisters fight sometimes, of course, but lately her lively little bunch had been particularly horrid to each other, especially Eric and Susie, who were only a year apart. The two of them seemed determined to spend the whole long winter making each other miserable. "Give me that, it's mine," Susie screamed. "It is not, I had it first," Eric answered stubbornly. Mother sighed as she listened to the latest argument. With Christmas only a month away, the house seemed sadly lacking in Christmas spirit. This was supposed to be the season of sharing and love and of warm feelings and happy hearts. A home needed more than just pretty packages and twinkling lights on a tree to fill the holidays with joy. Mother had an idea. Years ago, her grandmother had told her about an old custom that helped people discover the true meaning of Christmas. Perhaps it would work for her family this year. It was certainly worth a try. She gathered the children together and lined them up on the couch, tallest to smallest, Eric, Susie, Lisa, and Mike. "How'd you kids like to start a new Christmas tradition this year?" she asked. "It's like a game, but it can only be played by people who can keep a secret. Can everyone here do that?" "I can," shouted Eric. "I can keep a secret better than him," yelled Susie. "I can do it," chimed in Lisa. Me too," squealed little Mike. "I'm big enough." "Well then, this is how the game works," Mother explained. "This year, we're going to surprise baby Jesus when he comes on Christmas Eve by making him the softest bed in the world. We're going to fill a little crib with straw to make it comfortable. But here's the secret part. The straw we put in will measure the good deeds we've done, but we won't tell anyone who we're doing them for." The children looked confused. "But how will Jesus know it's his bed?" Susie asked. "He'll know," said Mother. "He'll recognize it by the love we put in to make it soft." "But who will we do the good deeds for?" asked Eric, still a little confused. "We'll do them for each other. Once a week, we'll put all of our names in a hat, mine and Daddy's too. Then we'll each pick out a different name. Whoever's name we draw will do kind things for that person for a whole week. But you can't tell anyone else whose name you've chosen. We'll each try to do as many favors for our special person as we can without getting caught. And for every good deed we do, we'll put another straw in the crib." "Like being a spy," squealed Lisa. "But what if I pick someone's name that I don't like?" Susie frowned. Ellen thought about that for a minute. "Maybe you could use an extra fat piece of straw, and think how much faster the fat straws will fill up our crib. We'll use the cradle in the attic," she said, "and we can all go to the field behind the school to get the straw." Without a single argument, the children bundled into their wool hats and mittens, laughing and tumbling out of the house. The field had been covered with tall grass in summer, but now, dead and dried, the golden stalks looked just like real straw. They carefully selected handfuls and placed them in a large box they had carried with them. "That's enough," Mother laughed when the box was almost overflowing. "Remember, it's only a small cradle." So home they went to spread their straw carefully on a large tray Mother seldom used. Eric, because he was the eldest, was given the responsibility of climbing into the attic and bringing down the cradle. "We'll pick names as soon as Daddy comes home for dinner," Mother said, unable to hide a smile at the thought of Father's pleased reaction to the happy plan. At the supper table that night, 6 pieces of paper were folded and shuffled and shaken around in Father's furry winter hat, and the drawing began. Susie picked a name first and immediately started to giggle. Lisa reached into the hat next, trying hard to look like a serious spy. Mike couldn't read yet, so Father whispered the name in his ear. Eric was the next to choose, and he unfolded his scrap of paper. A frown creased his forehead. But he stuffed the name quickly into his pocket and said nothing. Mother and Father selected names, and the family was ready to begin. The week that followed was filled with surprises. It seemed the McNeil house had suddenly been invaded by an army of invisible elves. Susie would walk into her room at bedtime to find her nightgown neatly laid out and her bed turned down. Someone cleaned up the sawdust under Father's workbench without even being asked. The jelly blobs magically disappeared from the kitchen counter after lunch one day while Mother was out getting the mail. And every morning when Eric was brushing his teeth, someone crept quietly into his room and made his bed. It wasn't made perfectly, but it was made. That particular little elf must have had short arms because he couldn't seem to reach the middle. "Where are my shoes?" Father asked one morning. No one seemed to know, but suddenly, before he left for work, they were back in the closet again, freshly shined. Mother noticed other changes during that week, too. The children weren't teasing or fighting as much. An argument would start and then suddenly stop right in the middle for no apparent reason. Even Eric and Susie seemed to be getting along better and bickering less. In fact, there were times when all of the children could be seen smiling secret smiles and giggling to themselves. And slowly, one by one, the first straws began to appear in the little crib. Just a few, then a few more each day, and by the end of the first week, a little pile had accumulated. Everyone was anxious to pick new names, and this time there was more laughter and merriment than there had been the first time, except for Eric. Once again, he unfolded his scrap of paper, glanced at it, and stuffed it in his pocket without a word. The second week brought more astonishing events, and the little pile of straw in the manger grew higher and softer. There was more laughter and less teasing, and hardly any arguments could be heard around the house. Only Eric had been unusually quiet, and sometimes Mother would catch him looking a little sad. But the straws in the manger continued to pile up. At last, it was almost Christmas. They chose names for the final time on the night before Christmas Eve. As they sat around the table waiting for the last set of names to be shaken in the hat, the children smiled as they looked at their hefty pile of straws. They all knew it was comfortable and soft, but there was one day left and they could still make it a little deeper, a little softer, and they were going to try. For the last time, the hat was passed around the table. Mike picked out a name and showed it to his father, who read it to him. Lisa unfolded hers carefully under the table, peeked at it, and then hunched up her little shoulders, smiling. Susie reached into the hat and grinned from ear to ear when she saw the name. Mother and Father each took their turn and handed the hat with the last name to Eric. As he unfolded the scrap of paper and glanced at it, his face crumpled, and he seemed about to cry. Without a word, he turned and ran from the room. Everyone looked concerned. Mother said, "Stay here. I'll go talk to him." In his room, Eric was trying to pull on his coat with one hand while he picked up a small cardboard suitcase with the other. "I'll have to leave," he said quietly through his tears. "If I don't, I'll spoil Christmas." "But why? And where are you going?" "I can sleep in my snow fort for a couple of days. I'll come home right after Christmas. I promise." Mother started to say something about freezing and snow and no mittens or boots. But Father, who had come up behind her, gently laid his hand on her arm and shook his head. The front door closed, and together they watched from the window as the little figure, with the sadly slumped shoulders, trudged across the street and sat down on a snowbank near the corner. It was dark outside and cold, and a few flurries drifted down on the small boy in his suitcase. "Give him a few minutes alone," said Father quietly. "I think he needs that. Then you can talk to him." The huddled figure was already dusted with white snow when Mother walked across the street and sat down beside him on the snowbank. "What is it, Eric? You've been so good these last weeks. But I know something's been bothering you since we first started the crib. Can you tell me what it is, honey?" "Oh, Mom, don't you see?" he sniffed. "I tried so hard, but I can't do it anymore. And now I'm going to wreck Christmas for everybody." With that, he burst into sobs and threw himself into his mother's arms. Mom, the little boy choked, you just don't know. I got Susie's name every time, and I hate Susie. I tried, Mom, I really tried. I snuck in her room every night and fixed her bed. I even laid out her crummy nightgown. I let her use my race car one day, and she smashed it right into the wall like always. Every week when we picked new names, I thought it would be over. Tonight, when I got her name again, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. If I try, I'll probably punch her instead. If I stay home and beat up Susie, I'll spoil Christmas for everybody. The two of them sat there together quietly for a few minutes, and then Mother spoke softly. Eric, I'm so proud of you. Every good deed you did should count double, because it was hard for you to be nice to Susie for so long. But you did those good deeds anyway, one straw at a time. You gave your love when it wasn't easy to give. And maybe that's what the spirit of Christmas is really all about. And maybe it's the hard good deeds and the difficult straws that make that little crib special. You're the one who's probably added the most important straws this year. Mother paused, stroking the head pressed tightly against her shoulder. Now, how would you like a chance to earn a few more easy straws like the rest of us? I still have a name that I picked in my pocket, and I haven't looked at it yet. Why don't we switch for the last day? And it will be our secret. Eric lifted his head and looked into her face, his eyes wide. That's not cheating? It's not cheating. And together they dried the tears, brushed off the snow, and walked back to the house. The next day, the whole family was busy cooking and straightening up the house for Christmas Day, wrapping last-minute presents and trying hard to keep from bursting with excitement. But even with all the activity and eagerness, a flurry of new straws piled up in the crib. And by nightfall, the little manger was almost overflowing. At different times while passing by, each member of the family, big and small, would pause and look at the wondrous pile for a moment, then smile before going on. But who could really know? One more straw still might make a difference. For that reason, just before bedtime, Mother tiptoed quietly to Susie's room to lay out the little blue nightgown and turn down the bed. But she stopped in the doorway, surprised. Someone had already been there. The nightgown was laid out across the bed, and a small red race car had been placed next to it on the pillow. The last straw was Eric's after all.